The deep sleep mirage. You wake up feeling like absolute garbage, yet your phone screen triumphantly informs you that you achieved a record-breaking 2.5 hours of restorative deep sleep. This particular disappointment happens because consumer wearables do not actually measure your brainwaves, which is the only true way to define sleep stages in a clinical laboratory. Instead, they rely on a combination of movement sensors and optical heart rate tracking to guess what your brain is doing. If you happen to lie completely still for an hour while stressing about work or staring at the ceiling, your device often clocks that stillness as deep sleep. It is a frustrating illusion that creates a massive disconnect between what the app says and how your body actually feels, leaving you doubting your own physical reality. Over time, relying on these inaccurate metrics can lead to a strange form of psychological distress, where a person feels tired simply because a digital chart told them their deep sleep was inadequate, regardless of their actual energy levels. The ghost awakening. This occurs when you look at your morning summary and see a dozen sharp red bars indicating you were awake throughout the night, despite having absolutely no memory of ever opening your eyes or disrupting your rest. Accelerometers in these modern devices are incredibly sensitive, meaning a simple toss and turn, a partner shifting on their side of the bed, or a pet jumping onto the mattress can be registered as a conscious waking event. While microarousals are a completely normal, healthy part of human sleep architecture that everyone experiences, seeing them visualized as a jagged, stressful timeline convinces people they have a sleep disorder they do not actually have. Early sleep researchers decades ago recognized that humans naturally wake up for fractions of a second to adjust their sleeping position, but consumer technology treats these minor physical adjustments as catastrophic interruptions to your rest. This constant stream of false alerts turns a perfectly normal night into a source of medical anxiety. The latency lie. You spend 90 minutes tossing and turning in the dark, desperately trying to turn your brain off, but your tracker claims you fell asleep in exactly 4 minutes. Most commercial rings and bands determine the onset of sleep based on a significant drop in heart rate and a sustained lack of physical movement. If you are someone who copes with insomnia by lying perfectly still, focusing on the dark, and practicing deep breathing exercises, you are effectively tricking the algorithm into thinking you are unconscious. The software cannot distinguish between a deeply relaxed, meditative state and actual stage 1 sleep, rendering your sleep latency data completely useless for tracking real-world insomnia. This creates a deeply frustrating situation where your historical data looks pristine and perfect on your dashboard, yet you are chronically exhausted because the device is completely blind to the agonizing hours you spend waiting for sleep to arrive. The arbitrary readiness score. This is the single, proprietary number generated by your wellness app that attempts to tell you how to live your day before you even have a chance to get out of bed. These scores are created by combining heart rate variability, skin temperature, and sleep duration into a secret black box formula that varies wildly from one manufacturer to another. Because the proprietary algorithm weighs certain metrics heavier than others, a slightly elevated resting heart rate from a late-night meal or an evening glass of wine can completely tank your score to a 30 out of 100. This number triggers a psychological phenomenon known as the nocebo effect, where a user feels instantly sluggish and unmotivated simply because a piece of wristwear told them their body is not ready for the day. You end up modifying your behavior, skipping workouts, or canceling social plans based on a flawed, generalized calculation rather than listening to your actual physical sensations. The calorie burn fantasy. Many users look at their overnight sleep data to see how many metabolic calories they burned, only to find numbers that are wildly inflated or completely detached from biological reality. Tracking devices calculate caloric expenditure during sleep using generic basal rate formulas combined with your overnight heart rate data, which fails to account for individual muscle mass, thyroid function, or genetic metabolic efficiency. Historically, human metabolism during sleep was studied in sealed metabolic chambers, which proved that energy expenditure drops to a very stable, low baseline. Wearables, however, often misinterpret a nightmare or a brief period of elevated heart rate as a high-intensity metabolic event, falsely crediting you with burning hundreds of extra calories while unconscious. Relying on these numbers to adjust your daily dietary intake or fitness goals usually leads to long-term frustration. as the device is merely guessing based on a demographic average. The heart rate variability. Anxiety. You notice your heart rate variability dropped by 15 milliseconds overnight, triggering an immediate wave of panic that you are getting sick, overtraining, or experiencing systemic inflammation. In reality, this specific metric is highly volatile and influenced by everything from a bedroom being 2 degrees too warm to the natural, predictable fluctuations of your hormonal cycle, because consumer trackers measure this rhythm at the wrist or finger rather than through a medical-grade electrocardiogram. Minor positional shifts or a compressed blood vessel during the night can create artifact errors in the data. The algorithm struggles to clean up this noisy data, turning a completely harmless biological blip into an unnecessary source of morning anxiety. Users often find themselves chasing a higher variability number, like a video game score, ignoring the fact that true autonomic health is about long-term trends rather than daily numerical perfection. The skin temperature panic. Your app alerts you that your skin temperature was over 1 degree above your personal baseline, leading you to believe you are coming down with a severe fever when you feel perfectly fine. Wearables measure peripheral skin temperature at the extremities, not your internal core body temperature, meaning the data is heavily influenced by external environment factors. A heavy duvet, a hand tucked beneath a pillow, or an unseasonably warm evening can cause your skin temperature to spike, while your internal organs remain at a perfectly normal temperature. Without this crucial environmental context, the device treats a warm blanket as a biological anomaly, causing users to stress over an impending illness that does not actually exist. This misinterpretation highlights the core limitation of wearable technology, which is the inability to understand the context of the environment in which the user is sleeping. The nap oblivion. You take a deeply refreshing 45-minute afternoon nap on the couch, but your tracker completely fails to record it, or worse, categorizes it as a period of high physiological stress. Many consumer algorithms are strictly calibrated to look for sleep only within a preset window of time that aligns with standard nighttime hours. When you deviate from this schedule for a quick weekend rest, the device struggles to process the data, either ignoring the sleep entirely or misinterpreting the lowered heart rate as a sedentary, unproductive state. This creates a frustrating gap in your total daily rest metrics, making it look as though you are sleep-deprived when you are actually managing your fatigue perfectly well. For shift workers, night shift nurses, or anyone with an unconventional schedule, this algorithmic bias makes the entire sleep tracking experience completely useless and deeply alienating. The battery, death, amnesia. You wake up eager to see how you slept after a particularly restless, experimental night, only to find a blank screen and a notification that your tracker died at 3 in the morning. Unlike smartphones that we naturally charge during our waking hours, wearables require a conscious strategy for charging, and their tiny lithium-ion batteries inevitably degrade over time. When a device dies mid-sleep, it does not just miss the remaining hours of the night, it often fails to sync the data from the first half of the evening, leaving you with a completely broken timeline and zero insights from your sleep experiment. This data loss destroys the continuity of your weekly and monthly averages, rendering your long-term health charts incomplete and forcing you to realize how fragile this digital record-keeping truly is. The false positive productivity. This happens when you spend an hour sitting quietly on the couch reading a book, practicing knitting, or watching a movie, and your device sends a congratulatory notification celebrating your unexpected morning nap. Because the threshold for identifying sleep is heavily reliant on a total lack of physical movement, any prolonged period of deep relaxation or stationary focus can easily fool the motion sensors. This data pollution corrupts your weekly and monthly averages, making your overall sleep duration look much healthier on paper than it actually is in reality. You are left with a digital dashboard that praises you for resting when you were actually wide awake, proving that these devices do not actually know when you are conscious, but merely when you stop moving.